Welcome to SLMA Radio. Today's focus is on B2C. We are going to talk about Google Local. Thank you so much for having us on, Jim. Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Finch, and I'm here with Stephan, and we have Mike Blumenthal with us. Last time, I rattled a bunch of nickels. This time, I'm showing you the dollar, because those nickels for this pain have converted to dollars for me, because so many of you feel the pain, and so many of us, well, not a lot of us, as Mayana Stevenson said last time, won't touch this with a 10-foot pole. We are talking about the detangling of Google today and how to find yourself locally, know what's out there, and how to clean it up, perhaps, and some great tools. But before we get there, we need to talk about what happened before all that. So Mike, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. And hey, Stephan, do you want to say a quick hello to everybody?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks again for having me. Well, for doing this together with me, Susan. This has been really great. I hope you guys were able to catch the last one with Mayana Stevenson. We talked a lot about transitioning to new providers and things that you need to be aware of. So some great knowledge in there. And we're like beyond thrilled. Susan and I have like totally nerded, geeked out here to have Mike Blumenthal with us. It's clearly one of the most respected and well-known experts in local search. The guy knows everything there is to know. Doesn't pull any punches, so this is going to be a great discussion about kind of wrapping your arms around this. And I think with that, thank you again, Mike, for joining us. And yeah, let's dive in, right? Let's talk about sort of how local search has
evolved. Let's deal with the first myth
today.
that I am somehow a guru, right? That's the first myth we've got to like squash right in the beginning, right? So idiot savant, perhaps, that would be more appropriate. Some people affectionately refer to me as Professor Maps, but when I ask them why, was it because I am so, instructive and I can teach people so well, or is it because I'm so pedantic and, they say yes, right? So, if anybody who looked at maps and local as much as I didn't know something, then you'd have a problem. I spend my whole day staring at the damn stuff. So, at the end of the day, you better know something. If you don't, then you'd have a problem. And if somebody spent as much time as I did at this, they'd be just as good as I am. So the only difference between me and you or anybody else is the time we've devoted to a given project. So I just want to be sure everybody gets that there's no difference top to bottom. It's all.
So yeah, Mike, why don't we dig into the sort of the evolution of, because you made a great point right before we went live about where Google search has, or rather local search has evolved, and let's talk a little bit about the importance of that, because I think it's something that we need to know before we really get into some other topics.
So, I started in local search actually back in the Yellow Page days, right, when I ran a small business. And when Google came out with local listings in 2004, 2005, I threw away my Yellow Page books. And for me, it was an epiphany that we would be able to look up any town, any business from any place. And so at that time, though, from 2005 to 2011, Google handled local search as a search result. Every 6 weeks, they would literally reconstitute the world of both geography, of places, and of business listings. They would take all the data they had about a given business or on a given phone number, a given address, and cluster it using web technology. It was tremendously resource intensive, and the problem was, while it was more accurate than what the Yellow Pages did, it created these sort of weird merged listings where one hotel would merge to another. So there was a lot of dissatisfaction in the business community at that time. So 2010, Google bought Metabase, which is the foundational database for plus and places. It allows people to create relationships between the entities of the world, the people, the personas, the Google profiles, the things, the brands, the places that exist in reality, are the things, the canyons and the roads, and the places, i.e. the business. And places have always had a special sort of meaning to Google, that even, where they think Google feels a strong obligation to get every place in the world accurate. So when they brought places into Plus, you have to remember, Maps is a directory environment, Plus is an advertising environment. It's all different sets of rules. So merging these two was a complicated process, and that process has been going on for 2.5 years. And it's one of, from my point of view, even though not pleasant from a business point of view, one of the great technical pivots of all time. I mean, Google basically driving this bus down the road of delivering business listings and search results, changed out the engine, changed out the tires, repainted the damn thing, and even, had sort of musical chairs on the bus, all the while moving down the road to get to where we are today, which is pretty near a functional working solution. And only a few people fell off the bus, not too many. A couple got run over, but hopefully they can get back on the bus. But it's an amazing technical pivot to move from a web technology, web search indexing technology, to a database technology. And they had to build all new underlying structures, underlying architecture, all new pipelines to move data into this thing, as well as new user interfaces for businesses to add their data to it. And like I said, local is a little different than the other entities. Google doesn't really care unless you're, obviously, and plus they care if you're talking about sex, alcohol, or guns, right? But in places they care about the accuracy of your physical data. And so there's different standards that they have basically merged together to come to bear in what's now people, places, and things, right? Which basically profiles place page or plus pages for business, my business stuff, and brand pages, local pages. So, but it's an amazing transition, and I've watched it sort of from the sidelines, close to it. I'm a Google top contributor, and so that's allowed me to see both the pain and get a little bit more detail back from Google about what's going on. They're mostly there. They've made a huge, huge change, and now with my business, I think we can hopefully move forward instead of 2 steps back and 2 steps sideways and 1 step forward.
What do we have to feed Google as far as correct information, and maybe where are some of the best places for that, so that we can at least get the good information out there in the right way, and then maybe after that we'll talk about ways that we can get rid of some of the bad information.
Well, and find ourselves too. We don't even know.
Yeah.
Some folks don't even realize they have a places page, that they have a business page, and that they have a YouTube channel. They don't even know that's been created for them with the help of Google wanting to be helpful. So it's tracking all of that down as well. So Mike, where do you want to start? Which piece of that?
So Google stores all local data in a database, right? It's this canonical place, and they literally send that data wherever it's needed, right? They send it to Plus for a Plus page. They send it to Maps. They send it out to Glass. They send it to the front page of Google for the 7-pack or the knowledge panel. So there's a canonical set of data that sits in a database, and Google basically provides a local as a service to any other Google product that needs it. My Business or Plus or wherever. So local is viewed as a service. It's not really a thing. You don't control that, right? Google perceives this local listing as critical. If they don't believe the information you gave them, they're going to check against other sources. So the way they assemble a local listing is they create what's sort of known as a cluster. They basically buy data from the top tier data providers. These are people who put together lists and verify lists. infousa, which is Express Update, localeze, acxiom, which is mybusinesslisting.myacxiom.com or something. They may also get it from other parties like Superpages, but they buy these lists, and then they get data from you, and they get data from user-generated content that says this place is open, this place is closed, via MapMaker, via Maps. So they have multiple data sources that they use as a primary reference to know that a business exists. In fact, you saw the other day they just started selling domains. My thought is it's not a huge money play for them, but it's a great place to get new business data, right? That new businesses are coming online, they're buying domains. So Google's very concerned with keeping their data fresh. So they buy this stuff, they assemble it in the local listing, and the best way for somebody to influence it, there's several ways, but one is to make sure that your data is clean at all of the primary and secondary data suppliers. Now at the secondary data places like the IYPs and Yelp, Google typically will match the data there against the known canonical listing and scrape those things for enhanced data, reviews, photos, but they can't do that if they can't match it based on NAP, name, address, phone number. So it's really important that for any given location, you have one consistent name, address, and phone number. It means that call tracking numbers have to be used incredibly carefully. Better not to use them if you don't know what you're doing, but they can be used. It has to be used very carefully. But so you really want this consistency. And the problem with the local ecosystem that Google looks at is several issues. One, it's not real time. It's basically sneaker net. It's very slow. Some of these people are moving to real time, like Yext and infousa and Google, but there's still a lot of delays in it. And also, once a piece of data gets into the ecosystem that Google sees, very hard to get it out. So the problem is that if Google sees conflicting pieces of data, they may update your record. You've seen that notice on your local listing. Oh, we've changed your listing. Well, thanks, you know. But they got it from a place they trusted more than they trust you. Or worse, they're going to split your cluster into multiple clusters. And we all know the name for multiple clusters, right? It's a, you know. So
Can't say it on YouTube.
I can't say it on YouTube. That's right. The whole thing would be go to wouldn't go there. It would just be not appropriate. So anyways, it creates multiple listings at the same location. That's worse because then the strengths that Google would assign to any given listing is diluted. You're less likely to show in search. You're less likely to show where it's critical. So it's important that you start by doing what's called a NAP audit. If you have a business location and you're interested in using Plus, you want to start by doing a NAP audit. NAP audit is there's 3 good sites where you can basically see what the other sites see about you. moz.com/local, Yext, and a new site called naptunelistings.com. Now, caution that Yext may try to sell you something. If you give them your phone number, you feel free to ignore them. They all offer services as well, but they do a good job of reporting out where you are seen and how you are seen. And so it's important, if you find discrepancies before you get started on this journey of search success and Plus success, you got to get those the bad naps cleaned up or deleted. And you need to start at the top tier providers we talked about and move your way down to the top 20 or 30, top directories, both horizontal directories like yellowpage.com and Superpages, Yelp, as well as vertical directories in whatever industry you're in. You got to make sure it's accurate there, because if that's inaccurate, Google's not going to be able to cope with it. So that's step 1 in this whole process, is making sure that the ecosystem sees you. David Mim did a great sort of diagram of this, local ecosystem, if you look it up. It just sort of shows you how this data flows. The second thing then is what I call a map, a basic map audit. You go into Google Maps and you type your address into Google Maps, right? And you see where the pin drops. And you do this at there's only 4 major mapping companies in the world, right? And Bing buys from navtech, Apple buys from teleatlas, Google obviously has their own maps. There's Google, teleatlas, navtech, or here, navtech, and openstreetmap. And you have to be sure that your street address resolves correctly. Imagine local is literally a data set. Your business is a data set layered on top of plot numbers, layered on top of street geometry, layered on top of the earth, right? So if any of those are wrong, you're going to have trouble with Google search, and you're going to have particular trouble with driving directions, critical part of this local loop, closing the sale. People can't get to you. They can't buy from you. So the second thing I do is I go into Google, I go to here.com, I go to teleatlas, and I go to openstreetmap, and I type the address in and make sure that it resolves correctly. It's a drop in the right point. If it doesn't, you need to stop and figure out how to get that fixed. Each of those has their own process to fix it. So you've done a NAP audit, you've done a map audit. Now you need to go to Google Maps, and I prefer the old Google Maps because the way it displays things, lower left little question mark down there, you can switch the old Google Maps. Type your business name and your city and see how many show up for you at each location. Once you get your viewport in, you can sometimes type the phone number in and see if there's multiple listings at that phone number. Google expects 1 business per location, 1 phone number per location, 1 business name per location. And if the reality isn't that neat, right? But if you want to do well on Google, you have to squeeze yourself into that reality. So the third thing to do is to do this sort of map listing audit to see if Google has you. And then I'd move over to Plus and do the same thing on the Plus local search, because that's going to show you non-verified pages. What you're going to see in Maps is what Google thinks are real locations. What you're going to see in Plus, if you do the same search, are Plus pages. Now these may or may not be verified, and so it's a slightly different view of reality that you need to deal with. With that, you can then sally forth into the sort of wondrous new terrain of My Business, Google My Business, and deal with your listing. So that enough background?
Wow. I'm hoping everybody was taking fabulous notes because you were given marching orders. You were given
Yes,
this
that's right. It's absolutely right. Marching orders. Get to work here. I mean, hey, the rewards are huge, right? I mean, getting on the front page of Google in a in a general search in the 7-pack, getting a brand search to show your knowledge graph. These are incredibly valuable things, but they don't happen unless you do the basics, right? This goes even before finding followers, before posting on Plus. If your local listing isn't clean and neat and tidy, and Google doesn't trust it 100%, then you're not going to make it to the front page of Google, which is, from my point of view, that is when you really have found yourself.
I wanted to bring up a comment or a question by Chad Russell. And Chad is asking, how do citations affect Google's local database?
Well, citations, in the world of real things, citations are basically mentions of that real thing, as opposed to web things where they use links. Now, if you read the original Google patent, Google looks at newspaper articles for your business name. They look at blog posts. They look around for listings about your business, and to some extent, they're a critical part of the local search algorithm. They don't function in and of themselves, and they're always best and most powerful when they're linked on your brand name, your business name, or where there's just a straight link. In other words, you're not looking for keyword links in citations, you're looking for just straight up URLs or links on your business name. And you're looking, though, and what's happened over the last 6 months is, prior to that, people would go out and get thousands of citations in every dinky little directory in the world. Most of those directories have been nuked, right? I mean, they've been either hit by Panda or Penguin or manual penalties and offer little value to your effort. But the top 20 or 30 general directories, the industry directories, and then more importantly, the real truly local places, the Chamber of Commerce, the Better Business Bureau. These are places that Google looks to. They have a concept in local called location prominence, right? It's like page rank. I mean, it sort of looks at authority pages and rates it and ranks a local listing higher if you're mentioned or linked to from these local authority pages.
So getting yourself into your
Wikipedia, for
Chamber of
example.
Commerce directory.
Yeah, Chamber, Wikipedia, for example, is the sort of nirvana of local listings, right? You can't get it, but if you did, that would be a citation that's worth gold, right? So a citation is a mention of your business name and or phone number with or without a link, preferably with a link. That's what a citation is. So
what I've noticed though is we're also focused on this, online, getting Google, and I'm so glad you covered Chamber of Commerce sites, city sites, and local organizations, especially when you're brick and mortar and you want people to come find you.
right.
Don't forget, folks, send your press releases to your local businesses, local newspaper and media, so they have announcements and they can add it to their sites, see how to get your stuff added to their sites, because as Mike is teaching us, it all factors in to that authority of you and your address. Make sure you have your address in those releases and information as well. Just tie it all in there everywhere you can.
I mean, from my point of view, once you have the top 20 done and your top verticals done, then really the focus should be on local, locationally prominent sites, because even if Google were to deprecate every link in the world, these places would still send you business, right? There's where your business, where your customers are. So that's really important. So I think you need to rethink your chamber meetings. You need to rethink your donations. You need to rethink your boards you're on. The new quid pro quo is a mention on their website. It's not, you don't need a plaque, you don't need a letter or dinner recognition. What you need is a link. If you're going to give the Little League t-shirt, great, that's good marketing, but then also get on the Little League website with a link to your business. That's better marketing, right? Because that influences both offline and online, so you can find these new customers that are looking for you. Those parents are your customers, and Google sees it. And
you are listening to SLMA Radio, sponsored by the Sales Lead Management Association. You can find us at theslma.com. That's THESLMA.com.
Google counts it, so.
And we're back. Right now, we are here with Mike Blumenthal. My friend Stephan Hovnanian is here, and we are in our second in our series of If I Had a Nickel. And today we are covering all things Google Local and finding yourself, cleaning up your records, and crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's to make sure that you can be found properly and accurately. Mike, back to you. Well, you mentioned something about the 7 pins, and not everybody understands that term. Some of us do, some of us don't. Can you briefly tell us what that means?
Well, sure. The most powerful property, the most powerful real estate on Google is the front page of Google. That's where that's where people do recovery searches. If they're looking to get driving directions, they do it on the front page of Google. It's where they find your phone number if they're looking for your phone number. But more importantly, it's where people who you don't aren't your customers yet find people to do business with. They go to the front page of Google when they're ready to buy. Facebook is about conversations. Google Plus is about conversations. Google Search is about buying. When people go to that search engine, and they do a local search, it's usually with a very strong intent to purchase. And so when they look for jewelry, Buffalo, New York, and you're, in the top of that, what's called the 7-pack, Google will insert into the pages the local businesses that meet that criteria. And now that Google knows where most searchers are located, you don't even have to add the word Buffalo. You just type the word jewelry, and you will show up in this pin pack. There may be some Yelp listings above or below you, or local websites above or below you, but the pins are basically drawing from Google's local database and showing on the front page, and it's where most of your business is going to come from. I mean, if you're looking for business in the local market, that is what you want to strive towards, is showing up in that 7-pack. And certainly all the activities we're talking about, making sure your record is clean, making sure you're getting citations, and then moving on to making sure you're doing a good job socially, all those things contribute to you showing up more prominently there, getting reviews, that sort of stuff. It all adds up, but that's the goal, because people don't go to Plus looking for business. They don't go to Facebook looking for business. They go to the front page of Google. And Google is willing to give you a half page above the fold. If you go into the 7-pack, you do a search for jewelry, Buffalo, and you scroll over the little pin and go to the right, they're going to give you a big knowledge panel to the right. Or if you do a branded search, Barbara Oliver jewelry, they're going to give you a great big branded knowledge panel to the right above the fold for free, just if you've done all these things we've talked about up to this point accurately and precisely. And that's incredibly valuable. I mean, there's no better real estate in the world right now.
Susan, I don't know if you put.
I've been sharing you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because I can't see what you're controlling over here. But wow, this is pretty impressive real estate on the front page of Google if somebody's looking for a brand name search. That's for sure.
And notice,
wow.
Notice this is where I know you've done a lot of work on profile images, Stephan. But this is where the profile images really comes into play, because you get one little image. Yep. To sort of create the eye candy to attract somebody, and that little box, as you know, is very hard to craft an image for that looks good. Now, if you go down in that search and you look at the bottom, people also searched for, and you click on one of the competitors, Google will show that same profile image in a carousel at the top of the page, and that even distorts the image more, makes it even harder to find an image because that's cropped differently than the image that's shown. So when you're doing your profile image, which is the most critical image, as Stephan has pointed out in a number of posts, really where you need to review it if you're a local business is these two places, the knowledge panel and the carousel, to make sure it's a compelling image, because it's the one shot you have at looking better than your competitor.
We have a lot of great comments and questions that are coming in. I wonder if we can tackle a few of those.
Tackle them, yes.
Yes. One of them is from Jennifer Mortensen, and she's asking, do reviews on your Google Plus listings factor into rankings?
Certainly there are. The answer is yes. Not just reviews from Google, but reviews from around the web. It appears that getting 5 or so reviews at Google will give you a certain ranking bump. It appears that getting reviews from around other sites of the web Google looks at will also do something similar. More importantly, though, I mean, I always look at reviews as social testimony that you're doing your job, right? And 76% of searchers look at reviews and trust them even from total strangers. So they're huge affirmation that a searcher who doesn't know you is making the right decision to choose you. So rather than thinking about reviews as something you want to get, you need to, again, think about reviews as something you need to earn. It's much like a link. You don't want to buy it. You want to earn it. If you've earned it, you've done a good job, and you've gotten a review because you've done a good job, that review's sincere, covers your services, that's that's different than going out and just getting reviews for the sake of rank. You can use reviews for a lot of things. You can use them to track quality over time. You can, help people find you better, know more about your business. Even getting a bad review in that context where somebody explains why you're not right for everybody is actually a good review because it helps you qualify your customers. So I guess I would look at reviews as certainly a ranking factor. Um, I wouldn't look at them as that being the goal, though. The goal is to get happy customers and to get new customers to make happy customers and have those people become your advocates online. That's the goal. And if you do that, you'll get reviews, and you'll get a lot of them. Now, a note on this, there's another recent patent that I've been studying called using driving directions to rank local entities or something like that. And it appears that when Google doesn't have reviews, they use driving directions. Well, that's great. So and you can imagine that's an alternative. So Google's going to rank you whether they have reviews or not. So I just think you need to take a right-headed approach to reviews and not get too wrapped up in getting them. Some recent research, which I haven't published yet, I queried about 2,000 U.S. American adults how frequently they leave a review for local businesses. 56%, 55% said never. 22% said less than once per year. So we're talking is 77% of American adults hardly ever leave a review. So getting reviews is hard. It's not an easy project because most people are not inclined. They love reading them. They love looking at them. They're just not inclined to leave them. So you really have to do something, I think, extraordinary in your delivery of services to earn them.
No, you're 100% right, and I appreciate you kind of reeling us all back in and trying not to focus on the mechanical technical stuff of what we have to do and just focusing on the why, right? Being a good business and earning that kind of stuff, because that's way more important and pays off in the dividends. And another props for negative reviews, because I know even for myself, I mean, if you hear people explain why, in a nice thought out manner, professional, respectful manner, and not just like venting, then it's really great information to find the right customer fit. So for those of you who are getting reviews and may see some negative ones once in a while, hey, be cool with it, right? Be cool with the fact that somebody cared enough to even tell people about their experience, and hopefully in the context of helping others make the same decision, or to work with you or not. How important is having a separate phone number for each individual business in a single building? And a couple people actually were interested in that. So let's talk about that too, because phone numbers can get, and suite numbers and things like that, especially medical practices, can get confusing.
So phone numbers is sort of the key glue that holds a cluster together about a local business. So you have a business name, an address, city, state, suite number possibly. But the distinguishing factor from Google's point of view is the phone number. So in the ideal world, a local phone number is used to represent one local business and one business entity only. Now so if you're and Google understands this, right? So I'm in a building, office building with a lot of lawyers. They're all in the same business. They all have their own offices. They all have their own phone numbers, right? So trying to set up two businesses with one phone number is a death knell. Now, sometimes Google scrapes that data in because that's how it's represented in the ecosystem, and they'll scrape in the doctor as well as the practice with the same phone number. But it becomes problematic when you can do it to a limited extent in some fields, like in the medical field where it's more common. But if you try doing that anything other than doctors, your listing is unlikely to rank. So you have to, ideally, every entity you want to rank in Google, you want to have a unique phone number for. Again, that reality doesn't always meet that criteria, but and you want to answer it as that business, right? In other words, when Google calls and does a quality check, and if you claim to be Beefeater's restaurant, they don't want to hear you answering Beefeater's downtown deli. They want to hear you answering Beefeater's restaurant. So Google does do quality checks, and one of the things they look for is the fact that your phone number matches the name you gave them. So, you should have a one-to-one tie as much as possible between a phone number and a name. Now, there's a million edge cases, doctors, and department stores, but most businesses fall into this situation: one name, one number.
I know with addresses, I think Karen and I have been working on a workaround, adding a suite number, even if there isn't one. It could be at 2 different rooms within the same building, but because it's 2 businesses, 2 different phone numbers, because they shared one address, it was still causing confusion. And so
The question I would have is it really 2 different businesses? Are they 2 different legal structures, 2 different accounting
yes.
structures, 2 different DBAs, 2 different filings with the state? Because a lot of people say, oh, well, I sell pants here and dresses there. Those are departments within the business. So I think as long as you really are 2 different businesses, sometimes Google can keep those straight, sometimes not. The algorithm is kind of like a 3-year-old with bad eyesight. I mean, it can't always distinguish entities clearly from one to the other. And if there's conflicting information coming in from the ecosystem, it may not allow you to separate those. You may have to pick one sometimes, even if that's not reality. But if it is reality and you do have clean naps and clean signals and clean links and clean citations and clean reviews, you can probably do it. But it's got to be real. In other words, Google doesn't abide by you saying, well, I sell pants out of Office A and skirts out of Office B, and therefore, and I have a I have a VoIP number, both dial the same secretary, and I'm 2 different businesses. They don't, that's a good way to get yourself suspended. As a note, there's a whole set of rules for Google locations called, I search for them on Places Guidelines, but if you look them up, and these are in addition to your plus rules. So all the rules you know about plus, you have to add these rules on top of them. You're held to these rules, and if you don't follow them, your listing will move from a verified local page to an unverified, brand page or whatever. No.
Wow, that Mike, regarding location
Linda.
prominence. Oh, can you explain to the folks how centroid does not equal city center?
When Google, in the sort of most rudimentary way, Google looks at relevance, prominence, and proximity as the 3 things that dictate which listings they show, right? So, and that all comes under this sort of location prominence patent. And relevance, one of the critical things about relevance is proximity. Where are you located? Where's the searcher located in relation to the business, and where's the business located? So when you do a desktop search, Google sort of defaults you to what they think you're located. Because I live in a rural area, they frequently will have my default search area 50 miles away from where I live, right? But when I'm on my cell phone, they know exactly where I am, and that both of those things affect search results. But as Linda pointed out here, Google, it used to be in the early days of the algorithm, they viewed the city center as the point from which to judge all searches. They've gotten more sophisticated and now use the business focus rather than the business city center. So if all of the car dealers are on the north side of the city, that's really where Google defines as the center of that search for the desktop, not the center of the city. So if you type in car dealers Buffalo, you're going to see the center of that search being sort of the weighted center of where the car dealers are located, not the weighted center of the city physically. Now, a lot of times they look the same when you do a search in Google Maps because historically business development occurred in the center of the city, but the algorithm has evolved beyond that. So if you're opening a new business, it behooves you from a Google local search point of view to be in proximity to other businesses of your ilk that are prominent in local search now.
That's a really
criteria.
The idea of being front and center, like on Main Street, 123 Main Street, is less of an issue.
Christopher Vogleman had an interesting question. Does the Twitterverse matter in your business ranking?
If you listen to Matt Cutts at SMX, he doesn't acknowledge that social signals are yet used in many ranking situations. That being said, it's the quickest way to get a link out there, to get Google to scrape a link. So it certainly has value. And I think it has value because in the end, a successful Twitter campaign around content leads to successful interaction with that content on your website, which leads to successful recognition both with links and readers. So in the abstract, it does. In a technical search engine sense, it probably doesn't. But do I think, you have to do it as much as it returns an ROI. Now, local and and Twitter are two different. Very hard to make a Twitter campaign work in a local environment. It would work in some, but it's the rare local business that can really succeed on Twitter, both driving traffic to their website and their business using Twitter. Few can, but it's hard. It's much harder than Facebook or Google Plus, I think.
I think a lot of this social proof and the social campaigning and all, it plays more of a part in generating buzz and conversation around your links or around your business that just broadens the exposure and the visibility for these things. Does it play directly into ranking? No, but if more people are now talking about you, that just increases the odds of somebody maybe local to you or influential in your niche to pick you up, and then now that just has a bigger impact on your visibility. I mean, it isn't all about getting on page one. It's about growing your business and generating business. Page one is part of it. All this stuff we talked about today is a big part of it, because the cleaner your data, the easier it is to be found. But at the end, especially when it comes to social, it is one big branding campaign trying to get a lot of conversation going around about you.
And my best advice to any business out there, if you're trying, I had one client actually ask me one time years ago, can you remove me from Google? Because they didn't like the reviews that were coming up. And my advice to them, be better. When you are better, people talk about you in a positive way, share word of mouth, referrals. That's the goal. Be the best at what you do. Find you. We want everybody. But we are so
do a Google
glad
search, for Christ's sake. Do a Google search. That's how you find, right? Isn't that how everybody gets found these days?
That's right.
So true. So true.
I hang out in the Google. I hang out at local U forums. My email is mike@blumenthals.com, localu.org, blumenthals.com/blog. I'm pretty accessible. I try to make myself accessible.
I prefer this. Yeah, just Google you, and
Right.
We'll have lots of choices wherever we feel like connecting with you. Stephan, how can everybody find you?
Yeah, you could do that too. Although you may find my great grandfather, or references to him. I'm still working on capturing page one for my name. But yeah, I'm here mostly on Google Plus or Twitter at Stephan Hove. Stephan Hove is sort of where I exist socially. That's what the the handle I've been trying to claim. But also, real quick though, I want to give a plug, a shameless plug for a service Mike put together called get5stars.com. Go check it out, because it's a really unique way to do some best practice for reviews, to get reviews for your business, and it's a really cool product. And that's something Mike's been working on and very excited about. So I just figured, hey, go check it out. And if it's right for you, work on that, because like we were talking about today, reviews are either positive or negative. They're important, and they help people make business decisions. And that's what we are all about here, doing business. So that's that.
Well, I want to thank everybody who came today. What a wonderful group. And I have to give a special shout out to Linda Buquet, because thank you for all your contributions to the comment stream. There have been a lot of great ones, but she has chimed in and just jumped in and filled in our blanks for us today. So thank you, Linda. I'm Susan Finch. You can find me at SusanFinch.com, plus Susan Finch. Same thing, Google me. The blonde lady in New York is not me. That's the voice coach. I am Susan Finch, with the dark hair, and the web developer. So we look forward to seeing you at our next If I Had a Nickel, and we will keep you posted as to what's coming up with that episode soon. Check out our past episode. It's in the details. Thank you again. We are so glad you joined us.